amazing patrons, and welcome to another installment of my TV Time series. And today I am looking at Penny Dreadful City of Angels. I lost track of how many months ago I watched this. It's been a while and I've just been too lazy to review it, and it's not like I had to because I didn't have any patrons on this tier, but I'm getting around to it now. I still have all my notes written down from when I was watching it, so my notes may become a little discombobulated because I don't, like I do with all my other reviews, I don't write or structure these ones. I'm going totally off the notes, so you kind of see me in a bit more of my organic state, which you may end up hating. So I have lots of things to go over. This is of course all completely spoiler filled. So Penny Dreadful City of Angels is a 2018 dark fantasy TV series and the spin-off of Penny Dreadful. It was created by John Logan and it only ran for one season where it was then cancelled. And I'm gonna say, after having watched it, I don't think this show was prepared to be cancelled. It totally seemed like everything it was doing was culminating in something that was going to happen season 2, which means every storyline in season 1 is open-ended, none of them are closed, none of them are rounded off, it's all just left in the air. And even though it has a very strange seasonal conclusion where we've gone through everything, and it's almost like the story has rounded off and closed, but nobody's character arcs, character plots, the big storyline of the season, whatever the fuck that actually was, also not fleshed out, not completed, and yet they're like, oh, but yep, this has ended. I'm like, I'm so confused. I was genuinely confused by the entire season, which was a shame because I loved Penny Dreadful. Okay, I didn't love the final season of Penny Dreadful, and I especially did not love the final episode, but in general, I did like Penny Dreadful, so I was really excited for this. Now I'm going to read the synopsis for the show, that way I can explain it more clearly. So, Penny Dreadful City of Angels is set nearly 50 years after the original series during the golden age of Hollywood in the 1930s. It takes place in 1938 Los Angeles, a time and place deeply infused with Mexican-American folklore and social tensions. The characters are connected in a conflict between the Mexican folklore deity Santa Muerte, the character of the dead and guide to the great beyond, and her spiritual sister, the demoness Magda, who believes mankind is inherently evil and aims to prove her point. Detective Tiago Vega and his partner, veteran detective Luis Meschner, are tasked with a gruesome murder case and soon become embroiled in Los Angeles history as well as its present, while racial tensions, the looming threat of war, and Nazi conspiracies threaten to derail them at every turn. Oh, see, just reading that out loud, you can kind of immediately go, wow, that's a lot. And that's because it is. My initial point was there is too much. There is about 50 different plot points going on in this TV series. It's kind of like Game of Thrones. The difference is with Game of Thrones, you know that everybody is specifically connected in a certain way, and you know that at some point everybody's storylines are going to intersect. And you know that ultimately, because of what the story's nature is, that everybody's stories are linked together even if the characters haven't met. But it could get very hard following week to week to week because there are so many plot points. But this one, I would say ideally they should have removed the storyline about the mayor, who is a closeted gay man who really wants to put in an freeway or highway, and he's basically a racist and he's trampling all over the Mexican community to do what he wants. I don't think his storyline needed to be there at all. I mean, I think that it's great to see, there are a lot of LGBT characters in this show, and I do think that's great. I don't think that any of them actually had a necessary reason to be there. I think the only interesting part about his storyline was in one episode when they show him going to an underground gay club, and they have signals and cues where if they think that the police are going to raid the place, they make a quick announcement and instantly everybody pairs up with someone of the opposite gender, so that it looks more casual. I thought that was brilliant because that is definitely something of those eras where people who were gay had secret codes to identify each other. They did have secret establishments, and they did have to do things like that. It was the same thing during the Prohibition era where it's, you know, people had alcohol and then it's like, oh shit, we're gonna get raided, quick, pretend we don't have any alcohol. So I did appreciate that. It just didn't feel like it had a place in the show. The storyline involving the Nazis, I would have gotten rid of that as well. It didn't feel like it needed to be there at all, especially the central character who was leading the Nazi storyline. He was a Nazi in Germany. His family were kind of Nazis, but he actually hates the Nazis. He kind of agrees with some of their less controversial policies, but he does not like war, he does not like fighting, he does not stand for any of that, and he does not want any of those things, which is why he moved to America, but still adorns the friggin' Nazi logo. Like, what? He's a bit of a contradiction. He's a walking contradiction. And yeah, all the storylines to do with the Nazis, yeah, I didn't think it needed to be there at all. The first episode opens with a family that has been brutally murdered, and their bodies have been staged to look as though it was a ritualistic killing, specifically with many elements of Santa Muerte. So it's implying that this crime was committed by someone Hispanic. And of course, Diego Vega, who is on the case, and they give it to him, of course, because he's Mexican. And he's immediately going, a Mexican did not do this. And his partner, who's played by Nathan Lane, who I love, by the way, which was really a selling point for watching this, whose character is Jewish, which is why he has sympathy for this character, because he's like, I know what it's like for people to hate me because I'm Jewish, so I understand people hating you because you're Mexican, so, you know, let's be buds. Even I, a white person, took one look at that crime scene and said, a white person committed this crime. It's true. And that isn't even a spoiler. Anybody would see that coming, that a white person committed the crime, and it is eventually revealed who did it. That storyline, that should have, I think, been the entire basis for the series. It should have focused around this crime, because this crime fueled an entire racial war in the city. And Diego is someone who is torn between wanting to be a cop and upholding the law and trying to be that person, whilst also being like, I am Mexican, and the number of times where he's going, I am Chicano, and he's saying, but he's like, to the white police officers, I'm too Chicano. To my fellow Mexican relatives, he's like, I'm not Chicano enough, and he can't win. So he is a really great character to follow, and he's performed terrifically. And he, you know, falls in love, and the person he falls in love with has an immediate connection to the crimes. So that entire storyline was great, because we see how the police act. Everything they do is racially motivated. It's really hard to see a lot of the racial crimes that are committed. An innocent person is lynched. It was really hard to watch, and I was watching this show while the Black Lives Matter protests were in full swing, and it was very uncomfortable to watch, but I think that was a necessary point. There was nothing that was dishonest about it, because this is how Mexicans were treated in America in those days. It was as bad as black people have been treated. You're a person of color. It's great because we see so many stories or films that focus on how white people treat black people, and this is specifically telling you, look, we've told their story. Let's focus on how white people were treating Mexicans during this time period. And I think that it was great, and there's so much that's the same, but that was the key. That crime was a catalyst for everything, and yet we have this demoness Magda, which is so weird. How does a demon named Magda be the sister of Santa Muerte? Like, what? Why is this white chick related to this Latin chick? I'm so confused. They never dived into who this demon is, what she wants, how is she Santa Muerte's sister. I felt like they didn't dive enough into the mythology of those characters, and considering Magda is trying to turn everybody against each other and create this giant cataclysm of a war, it's funny how she had no hand in the crime that happened. I think that everything should have been rewritten, where she was focused on that crime and somehow had spurred it to happen. I did completely agree with her kind of being that person who whispers in everybody's ear when there is an actual confrontation between police and Mexicans, and she is whispering in the ear of a police officer, waiting like which one is the most one likely to shoot. She goes after him, and she just gives him that little nudge. He shoots, and then she goes over to the Mexicans. She does the same thing. So she's fueling that anger within them. But so I do like that, and that entire storyline should have been the entire focus of the season instead of all the additional things we got. There were a lot of white people, doing accents, such as German accents, and I think that they were the worst German accents I have ever heard in my life. I would not recommend them. Natalie Dormer plays 4 characters. She plays 4 characters. So she plays the central character, Magda, the demon and sister of Santa Muerte, and then she also plays Alex, a Jewish woman who works for the mayor, and she's trying to, encourage him to do all these racist things and basically destroy the city, but she's also working with the Nazis, so I'm very confused. I'm like, what? I mean, I think her physical transformation is great. I do recall there was a note where people said on the set nobody realized it was Dormer until she spoke. It wasn't that impressive of a transformation. It wasn't like Gary Oldman as Winston Churchill, okay? I looked at it and I'm like, she looks great, but it's still very clearly Natalie Dormer, so I don't know, maybe those people needed glasses. But it looked great. And then of course she plays Elsa, who is, she also plays Elsa and Elsa's son. It's an extension of her. So she's playing this immigrated German woman, and she's playing the victim of abuse and really trying to get to this man, who is the guy who, he is a Nazi, but he doesn't want to be a Nazi, and she knows that actually his family is very big in the Nazi world and something to do with weapons, and so she is trying to fuel him and make him be a Nazi. And to his credit, as much as he is a gullible pushover, like, it is quite sad how easily he fell for her in a pretty face and the damsel in distress act. Like, dude, you're quite pathetic. When it came to his political and social views, he was unbending, and he really did not want to show racism or any of that stuff. So she was having to go to some extreme lengths to try to make him dive into his more unnatural impulses, and he wasn't doing it. So to his credit, good for him. She also plays a character named Rio, who is kind of a leader of the Pachucos. And I thank you to this TV show for teaching me what the word Pachuco meant, instead of just listening to the song Hey Pachuco, which is still catchy. I kept watching her this whole time, and I'm like, she's playing a white, she's white, but she's playing a Latina? I'm like, oh, there's some issues here. Except, to their credit, they broke it down, and they're like, someone said, how are you one of us when you're white? And she explains that she's actually from Seville, that her family is from the old Spain, and still, even today, if you go to Seville, a lot of the people of Seville are white. So yes, Spanish people can be white, and they were really leaning hard into that to explain why she is a white Latina. But it just really made me so uncomfortable seeing a white woman who I know is British lecturing Mexicans on what it means to be Mexican and standing up, and I'm just like, oh, sweet Jesus, please stop. Please stop. I think because we had established through Elsa and the fact that the son is also a part of Magda. Elsa is the main persona, and they're all Natalie Dormer in wigs and an accent. So considering we know that the son is just a part of her that she has created, I'm like, okay, so wouldn't the smarter thing have been to actually cast these roles out to different people instead of her playing all of them? I think it would have been much smarter, since we can establish that she can do illusions and all that kind of stuff. It would have been a lot smarter to say that when she is Magda, she is played by Natalie Dormer. But when she is Alex, she is played by another actress. When she's Elsa, she's played by another actress. And so when it came to Rio, I think that they should have cast that to a Spanish-speaking or Mexican actress to play that role, and just say it's Magda in disguise, instead of having Natalie Dormer just put on contacts and a wig, and they definitely put bronzer on her to kind of tan her up a bit. So it's bordering on blackface, but it's not quite there. But the fact is, they did tan her up to make her look like she's of a darker complexion. I just think that that was a missed opportunity. It's so easy to just say she is a demon and she can take any form she wants, so sure, she could have easily just made herself look like somebody else. So it's weird because she plays all these people, but she looks like herself, and yet when her different versions intersect, so there's like multiple versions of her at once, and they intersect, or a person that she's manipulated in one form bumps into the other form of her, and they're just like, yeah, you don't look familiar at all. I'm like, really? Okay, I mean, if you say so. I learned a lot of racist terminology in this show, and I don't want to ever have to repeat them, but now I know if I see anybody using them, I know it means they're racist. Dago, Spix, well, Dyke I already knew about. Well, ones I already knew about, Dykes and Faggot. That one, I've already got that one covered. Didn't know about Dago, Spix. I knew about Spix. Spix I'd heard of before. I did not know about Dago or Wetbacks. These are interesting ones. Didn't know about them, and I hope I never have to hear of them ever again. So considering everything in this starts because Magda has some issues with her sister Muerte. The feud between them, whatever their issues are, like there's a point where they talk and Magda says something that implies her sister turned her back on her or something, and that's why she is the way she is. And I'm just like, but what happened? Tell us what happened. What happened between you two? It's, you know, Muerte pops up every now and then, but she does fuck all in this story. She's so she's such a useless character. Magda, on the other hand, is doing 50 different things. Muerte is just useless, and I guess maybe that's Magda's point, that it's like, you don't do anything and everybody, you know, worships you. I do all this stuff and I get nothing. Yeah, I think everything, the Mexican storyline was very clever, very good timing, and really reflects a lot of things that were said and done in that TV series were totally a reflection of things that we have heard said and done from the Trump administration. So I think that it was a great way to have political commentary on what's going on without addressing what's going on. So that's very clever. Nathan Lane as Detective Louis Mershner, I freaking loved him. He gave a great performance. I think it's really admirable seeing his character, who is like trying to bring down the Nazis in America. That's great. It's just that the entire story was completely irrelevant. I think that it just should have been like, he could speak from experience, and that way he can relate to Diego and be like, yeah, I've been where you are, I know how you're feeling, and that's why I've got your back. And that could have been left there, and we could have had him simply talking about, you know, his ordeals with dealing with anti-Semites and things like that, and Nazis, and I think that would have been fine, instead of actually creating this entire plot line where we are introduced to Nazis and the Nazi agenda and how they're trying to circumvent American politics, and I'm just like, dude, I can't keep up. The show starts off with a prophecy, which is something like, when nation turns on nation and when brother turns on brother, the world will come to an end, or something like that. I've got like the first two verses, but I can't remember what the last line was. And I was just like, this is the most vague prophecy I have ever heard in my life. Because how many times in the span of the world has nation turned on nation? That's basically been around since day dot. Nations have been fighting nations. We can go back to the days of the Knights freaking Templar. We can go back to the last Crusades. You know, this has been happening for a very long time. Brother turns on brother. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that happened in a lot of wars too. One brother fights on one side, one brother fights on another side. Pretty sure it even happened during the fucking Civil War in the US. So I was really annoyed every time an episode came and they quoted this prophecy. I was just like, this is the most generic piece of crap I've ever heard, because you're kind of implying that the events of this story is the prophecy, and I'm like, I can name you probably 100 times in history this prophecy has become relevant and has been adhered to, but I'm like, okay, we'll go with what you said. Doesn't make sense, but okay. Did Penny Dreadful need a spin-off? I'm gonna go with no. No, I really don't think it did. I was totally excited when I heard that they were gonna do another Penny Dreadful. I was like, yes! But this one was not as deep-rooted in the supernatural as the first Penny Dreadful was, and this was far more political and specifically dealing with racism. So there was really hardly anything supernatural going on, so I did not even feel at all like it had any connection to the first Penny Dreadful. So after watching it, it's like, yeah, did we need a spin-off? At first when I'm like, yeah, we're gonna spin off, and then it's like, did we need one? I'm like, no, we didn't. It wasn't a good idea. I feel like they didn't do enough with the character of Diego. Daniel Zavato did a terrific job playing him, that inner turmoil where he's torn between his career and his ambition and his, you know, kind of loyalty to his family and his race. Brilliant storyline, it was amazing, but I really feel like they didn't do enough with him. They even started doing something with his older brother, like he had a really strong storyline for maybe the first 1 or 2 episodes, and then they really just completely abandoned him and did nothing with him after that. They really kind of traded the 2 brothers who had more interesting stories for the younger brother, and they focused on him and him kind of really fueling this kind of race war. It's like, yeah, we're gonna stand up and be Chicano and be proud and all this stuff, which is fine. It's just, he's a doormat who is being horribly influenced through the entire thing, and he's so under Rio's thumb, it's quite sad. And even when he watches her kill like one of their own, he doesn't go, oh no, I'm out. He still blindly follows her and turns his back on his family. So he was kind of a stupid character. I love that for the most part, outside of Rio, they did cast Latinx actors to play Latinx characters, so that was great. Adriana Barraza, who plays Maria Vega, who is the matriarch of the Vega family. Oh my god, she was the MVP of this show. I freaking loved her every step of the way. She was without a doubt my favorite character because she is the matriarch of her family. She is the only parent. She is constantly trying to kind of be a disciplinarian, enforce strict rules for her children, but also encourage them to follow their dreams, follow their aspirations. She wants better for them, but she's always trying to bring them together as a family. And numerous times she is so disrespected and you feel so bad for her, and I'm just like, you know what? You're totally in your right if you turn around and slap them all. But she kind of is constantly trying to rein in her emotions and just try to bring her family together. She knows about Magda. She is considered a bruja, so she's a witch. And she worships Santa Muerte, and she prays to her a lot, and Santa Muerte does come to her a few times, but Santa Muerte is just like, nah, not getting involved, and Magda shows up, and oh my god, it's like you're talking to a demon. And the Maria Vega, she's just like, I ain't got time for your shit, I don't do this, and she's like, nah, I'm good, we're fine, I'm not scared of you. I'm like, she's such a badass. And at the end of the day, she has that maternal instinct and that mother's strength where it's just like, you can't fuck with me. I have been through too much, I have seen too much, and I will fight tooth and nail for my family. And I absolutely adored her. She's everything that I love and find empowering in female characters. So seeing her, I was just like, the whole time I'm like, I love you so much. And she was performed so spectacularly. Her kids can be shits, especially her daughter. Her daughter is a friggin' idiot who was just like, yeah, I'm gonna go and join this kind of Christian cult. And I'm just like, oh, you know, she's just like, we are angry, we are passionate, but we are Mexican, that is part of who we are. And it's just like, we do that, we scream, we yell, and then we come together and we celebrate. And I'm just like, I'm cool with that. I'm like, go for it. That's actually, I kind of like it. The way she's saying it is not like, we are angry, hateful people, we are a passionate people. And it's more that we deal with it. We get out our emotions, we put everything on the table, and then we deal with it, we process it, and we move on instead of kind of letting things fester and bubble up. So I kind of really love that they're kind of addressing that stereotype where they say like Mexican mothers are angry or Mexicans are angry people. They're addressing that, but they're saying, no, we're passionate. And we just don't hold shit back and like build up this resentment. We just deal with shit. We do it, we address it, and then we move the fuck on. And I'm just like, yes, more people should be like that. I love you. Councilwoman Beverly Beck, who's played by Christine Easterbrook, I had seen her in numerous other things, and I did love her. And I love that she was this badass woman who was constantly like going up to the mayor going, you are a pathetic little man and I'm not backing down to you. I will not let your racism and your bigotry and your misogyny, especially when you're a gay man, she knows it and she doesn't give a shit. She's not like kind of attacking him for being gay. She actually doesn't care. So she's quite progressive. She's just saying, I will not back down and answer to tyrants like you, especially when you are this pathetic. So I love that we had a lot of strong, powerful women in this show, and I like that a lot of what kind of made Magda fail in her attempt to create war and all this stuff is because she couldn't manipulate the women. She couldn't get through to them because they were just like, no, sorry, not happening, fuck you. Whereas she was able to manipulate all the men, and she specifically was able to go for weak-willed men who were also weak of mind. But when she was interacting with these women, she was fucked. She had nothing, and she's like, damn damn it. Like, she was genuinely getting pissed off and frustrated, and I love that because, you know, there's this stereotype that people have said you can't have a woman in power because if she has her period, she's just going to nuke the country. It's such a load of crap. But in this, we're like, no, we have been through so much and we know how to persevere and fight through things, and we also know how to use logic. And all these women, they were logical, they were strong-willed, and they did not cower. And it kind of thwarted a lot of her plans because she was relying so heavily on dim-witted men because they were the easiest ones to manipulate, and she was like avoiding the women. She's like, nope, I can't. I'm like, yeah, I'm a powerful demon, but I'm kind of screwed against strong women. So I actually quite enjoyed that storyline. I think episode 8 was my favorite. There was a lot of good storylines, and we had an amazing sudden appearance of the incomparable Patti LuPone. She is performing at the Underground Gay Club, and she's singing, and I thought that was absolutely amazing. And there was a joke in the first Sex and the City film where the character of Miranda, she says, it's the laws of physics. When there are this many gay men in a room, lies are manifests. I would like to have that fixed. I think that should actually be, when there's so many gay people in a room, Patti LuPone manifests, because I've seen her doing this, I've seen her doing Pose, she appeared on a Randy Rainbow video. Patti LuPone is kind of like, she is the gay people's diva. She is amazing, and so I was so excited to see her. So episode 8 was definitely my favorite, but oh my god, the biggest OMFG of the season was Piper Perabo. Holy shit! It wasn't, okay, so we're going along and we know that Peter Kraft, before he ends up with Natalie Dormer's character of Elsa, not to be confused with the Disney Elsa, he's married, he has 2 children, and this is his wife. And I was just like, wow, she looks like a bitch on heels. And yet I feel like some of her bitchiness was kind of warranted given that her husband is cheating on her. And he not only divorces her for Elsa in like 3 seconds, but he sticks her in the loony bin. So that was pretty fucking cruel. And the whole time I'm going, I have no idea who this actress is. I don't recognize her. I know absolutely nothing. And then we get further along into the show and we see him interacting with her in the nut house, and because her hair is different, she's not wearing all the makeup, her hair is not coiffed and sleek and perfect, and they got her on just the right angle, and she kind of, her accent that she was doing slipped just a fraction. I went, is that who I think it is? And I'm like, is that Piper Perabo? And I quickly went and Googled it, and it was, and I went, holy shit! So this is Piper Perabo, and this is what she looked like in the show, and I was just like, oh my god, that is the best transformation. Like, fuck all of Natalie Dormer's transformations. None of them were as amazing as this. She didn't look or sound remotely like her. It was several episodes before I even realized that that was her. That was crazy. That is definitely up there as one of the best that is the best transformation of the entire season. She was completely unrecognizable. I actually did not know Piper Perabo had that level of acting skills. I did not know that she was a chameleon like that, so I was extremely impressed, and I just spent like the entire week after that going, what the fuck? I was blown away. That was just amazing. Ultimately, so many of the storylines did not work. It was over-cluttered. There was too much going on, too many characters. They shouldn't have had the plot line about the Nazis. They shouldn't have had the plot line about the mayor. They shouldn't have had the plot line with Elsa or Alex. And I think, yeah, maybe we should have just stuck with like the race war thing among the Mexicans and the whites that was going on. But it was just, also there was just this entire storyline with like this Christian cult, and this really dominating mother and her daughter, who kind of is like the messiah of the cult, even though they're all like praising Christianity, so it's very weird. That had a connection to the crime of the first episode, but we didn't dive into this cult like at all. We didn't dive into the specifics of it being a cult, and we never dove into the crime. It just kind of started as this catalyst, and then it was dropped, and we're introduced to all these racial storylines, but it just snowballed out of control, and I think it should have been condensed. They could have taken so much out. Just focus on that. Focus how on this crime led to showing how racist the police are, that they don't care about a crime being solved, they just want to pin it on the nearest Mexican they can find, and then eventually kind of lead into maybe you could have led it into the fact that it is connected to this kind of Christian cult. You could have just said that it was Magda influencing the people involved in it. That would have made so much more sense. And then you can have Magda in the form of a Mexican woman playing Rio, who is, trying to rile everyone up and definitely create this race war. That would have been enough. Stick with that. It would have been great. But yeah, overall, it was an extremely disappointing series. I did not enjoy it. There was so much potential there that just did not pan out. So I was pretty upset, which is a shame because I also love Natalie Dormer, and I think her performances were great. I just don't think they were as amazing as people were trying to sell them, and I don't think a lot of the character she played was necessary. And nothing was ever really explained about Magda, so that was disappointing. So overall, I don't usually say this, but I would not recommend watching this, especially because it ends on a cliffhanger, and so you're never going to get any answers to anything that happens in that show, so it's better to just avoid it. Just shouldn't have been made. So that is the end of my review and thoughts on Penny Dreadful City of Angels Season 1, where there will be no Season 2. If you have seen it, share your thoughts. I'd love to know what you think. Otherwise, you can also tell me if you think, in spite of everything I said, would you give this a watch? But that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for supporting me, and I have a long list of shows that I need to get through. I'm not sure which one I will watch next, but when I do, you will be the first ones to find out about it. So stay safe, stay healthy, that's not a word, stay healthy, and I will catch you in the next installment. So until then, bye!